The engagement was called off because my fiancé valued his friendships more than the love we shared. This revelation hit me like a tidal wave. It began with a seemingly harmless conversation about wedding plans, a conversation that spiraled into chaos, forcing me to question everything. At 26, I was set to marry Mark, a man whose qualities seemed too good to be true. Handsome, intelligent, and kind, he had a sense of humor that could light up a room. My sister Jennifer, 3 years younger, was more than just my sibling, she was his best friend. Their bond ran deep, forged long before I ever entered the picture. They had met as teenagers at her high school job and became inseparable through college and work. Their connection thrived over shared interests like gaming and photography, and it wasn't unusual for them to spend hours together or attend conventions side by side. When Mark asked Jennifer to be his best man, I agreed without hesitation. It was unconventional, sure, but it reflected the deep trust between them. She was ecstatic, of course she was. This role fit her perfectly. But it wasn't long before the harmony unraveled. The trouble started with the dress. Jennifer had her heart set on wearing a stunning, custom-designed gown, a mix of red and black, formally yet eye-catching. It wasn't inappropriate by any means, but it was undeniably bold. And Jennifer herself? Tall, striking, with a presence that turned heads. As much as I admired her confidence, I couldn't shake the worry that her ensemble would eclipse the balance I'd envisioned for our wedding party. Tentatively, I suggested she wear a tuxedo to match the groomsmen. Mark and Jennifer pushed back immediately. When I expressed concerns about the dress drawing too much attention, Jennifer's demeanor shifted. "Are you serious?" she muttered, barely masking her disdain. With forced composure, she conceded, but the air between us thickened with tension. What followed was a cascade of passive-aggressive barbs. Mark began exaggerating his appreciation for Jennifer's figure, while Jennifer made mock Freudian slips and elaborate gestures to highlight her chest whenever I was around. Their antics felt cruel, and my concerns were dismissed as paranoia. Mark, once my rock, now seemed distant, uninterested in the wedding plans, and indifferent to the growing rift. Jennifer's frustration boiled over during a heated exchange about tuxedo options. When I tried suggesting styles, she retorted sharply, accusing me of micromanaging her appearance. Her words stung, "You're being a bridezilla." I shot back, calling her out for being a bad sister. She countered, claiming my requests amounted to body shaming. My parents, hearing both sides, sided with Jennifer, further isolating me. My father even urged me to let her wear the dress if it meant restoring peace. I turned to Mark, desperate for support, but his response was cold. "It's your wedding. Do whatever you want." His apathy cut deeper than I expected. The man I thought I knew seemed unwilling, or unable, to stand by me when it mattered most. The strain was palpable in every interaction. Living under the same roof as Jennifer made things unbearable, so I spent more time at Mark's place. But even there, I found no solace. He was emotionally absent, avoiding conversations about our future. Moving in with him was supposed to be a fresh start, but it now felt like a distant, unattainable dream. And then came the final blow, an unexpected revelation from Mark's boss, John. He had stumbled upon the public fallout of our wedding drama online. That's when it became painfully clear. The cracks in my relationship with Mark weren't new. They had always been there, masked by his easygoing nature and my willingness to compromise. The wedding was officially off. The dream of a future with Mark shattered, not because of one dress or a single argument, but because of deeper, unresolved issues that no amount of planning could fix. It started with a message, simple, almost absurd: "This is John. LOL. Call me." I dialed him from the parking lot after work, curious and a little apprehensive. John, a mutual acquaintance, had been married for 20 years, and he launched straight into it, offering unsolicited advice about my relationship. He told me flat out, he didn't think Mark and I were a good match. More than that, he claimed Mark was unhappy, deeply unhappy, with our relationship and the wedding planning. So unhappy, apparently, that it had become a running joke among his friends. At first, I was defensive. Sure, Mark and I had our disagreements, but John's words struck a nerve. When he mentioned that Mark had confided in him about the stress and frustration, I couldn't help but push back. How could I not? Mark's wedding ideas had been nothing short of absurd. Custom swords and daggers for the wedding party? Amulets for everyone? He wanted them to hold swords during the ceremony, claiming guests would find the fantasy accessories cool. Then there was the bridesmaid dress drama. John revealed that Mark had proposed Jennifer's friend, a custom designer, to create the dresses, with John even offering to foot the bill as a joke or bet. I refused. I wanted my bridesmaids to wear elegant, classic dresses, not something experimental. The bridesmaids were ready to purchase their dresses from a reliable boutique, and I wasn't about to compromise. The ridiculousness didn't stop there. Mark had suggested serving homemade meat, yes, meat prepared in John's basement, at the wedding. The words basement meat still haunt me. John chuckled when he mentioned it, clearly relishing the memory of Mark pitching this bizarre idea. As if that wasn't enough, Mark wanted the reception band to play classical covers of video game and superhero music. A jester performing magic tricks and riddles was also on his list, along with allowing a friend to attend as an elf, complete with a green toga dress, fake ears, and elven script. The whole thing felt less like a wedding and more like a fantasy convention. When I brought up these examples, John didn't sympathize. Instead, he laughed, calling me boring and saying Mark's ideas were awesome. He didn't stop there. He said he'd repeatedly told Mark that we weren't compatible and that Mark needed to talk to me about his doubts. I pressed John further. Did he think Mark and Jennifer were a good match? His answer was an unhesitating yes. When I asked if anything had ever happened between them, he denied it confidently, saying Mark didn't have the poker face for deception. He assured me they'd never cheated but recounted an unsettling story. Apparently, just after her 18th birthday, Jennifer had made a suggestive joke to Mark, saying, "I'm 18 now, so you can date me," which Mark had laughed off. That didn't stop John from speculating that Jennifer harbored deeper feelings for him. He pointed out that their characters in role-playing games had dated, but, he insisted, their real-life interactions had always been chaste. I needed answers. I went to Mark's house, frustrated by his silence. When we finally talked, he confirmed much of what John had said. Mark admitted he felt overwhelmed by the relationship and anxious about me moving in. It was his childhood home, and he struggled with the idea of change. Every time we discussed sharing space, he framed it as giving me some rooms, not creating a shared home. The wedding planning had become a sore point too. He confessed he felt excluded, claiming I shut down all his ideas. Even the elf dress Jennifer wanted to wear, something I grudgingly agreed to, provided it matched the theme, had been a final straw for him. He felt vindicated when Jennifer and John predicted I'd find fault with it. Mark accused me of body-shaming Jennifer, interpreting my objections as jealousy. He called me controlling and, worst of all, a bridezilla. Hurt and confused, I asked why he had even proposed if he felt this way. His answer stung. He said he felt pressured, believing his options were either to marry me or break up. He admitted he'd taken notes on what I wanted in a proposal, something I had mentioned frequently, and felt obligated to deliver on my expectations. To him, proposing had seemed like the path of least resistance. I tried to explain my perspective. Yes, I had life goals, like getting married before 30 and starting a family in my late 20s or early 30s. But that didn't mean I had pressured him. Mark didn't see it that way. He said my timeline felt fine for me, but he was ambivalent about children, revealing that Jennifer wasn't sure about having kids at all, and certainly not soon. Mark's words hit like a freight train, unraveling everything she had meticulously planned for years. He told her Jennifer, her sister, was his best friend and that their bond was worth more than risking for romance. He admitted he never even thought he stood a chance with her, too young at first, unavailable later, and then, well, there was the fact he was dating her. She believed him when he said nothing had ever happened between them. She wanted to trust him, needed to trust him. But then came the twist of the knife. He confessed he'd only started dating her because of a fleeting connection at a family party, a moment he misread as interest. Mark's insecurities tumbled out in waves. He didn't see himself as attractive, despite his undeniable qualities, his PhD, his successful career, a home at just 28. She couldn't believe he didn't recognize himself as a catch. Yet, to him, his dating history spoke volumes, a prom date turned sort of girlfriend, and then her. That was it. That was all. The conversation veered sharply downhill when he said he wanted to put a pause on their wedding plans, on moving in together. The words hit her like a cold splash of water, and before she knew it, tears blurred her vision. He apologized repeatedly, blaming himself for ruining her dreams, but the damage was done. The drive home was a haze of heartbreak and disbelief, and by the time she arrived, Mark had already texted Jennifer, "Your sister is crying." Sorry. Jennifer's involvement stung even more. She and Mark had spent the entire time on the phone, and, of course, their mother was already in the loop. Comforting words from her mom came laced with the subtle sting of "I told you so." For years, her mother had warned her not to push Mark away, had hinted that Jennifer might be a better match for him. And now, here they were. Jennifer tried to explain herself, claiming she only ever wanted Mark to be happy. She brought up past efforts to include her, like buying her a gaming console to match Mark's interests, and apologized for how things had turned out. But the accusations followed swiftly, cutting deep. Jennifer claimed she never really loved Mark for who he was, only for what he represented, a check mark on her list of life goals. The argument escalated until their mother intervened, urging everyone to cool down. But when Jennifer said Mark was her best friend and nothing would ever change that, it felt like the ultimate betrayal. When pressed further, Jennifer refused to elaborate, shutting down the conversation with an air of finality. Even as her mother comforted her, the undertone remained: she had been wrong to date Mark in the first place. The whispers behind closed doors were unbearable, suggestions that Mark belonged with Jennifer, that she wasn't enough, that she had stolen something that was never hers. Jennifer seemed unfazed, returning to her normal routine, gaming with Mark in their shared circle of friends as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, she packed up Mark's engagement ring and handed it to Jennifer to return. When Mark's text finally arrived, its casual brevity was almost laughable. "Okay, I guess we are broken up then. I'm sorry." The aftermath was chaos. Comments from others poured in, dissecting every moment. Some blamed her for dating her sister's supposed soulmate, while others accused Mark of being the real villain, stringing her along while secretly yearning for Jennifer. In the end, everyone seemed to agree on one thing: the entire situation was a mess, leaving no one unscathed. And as she stared at the shattered remnants of her plans, one thought echoed louder than the rest: how had it all gone so wrong?